Looks like we have some people joining. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I see your face and your name, so I can say hello.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's Tiffany. Hi, Tiffany.
Hi. Can you guys hear that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, good.
Your cat eating or something?
She's meowing at me because I'm sitting next to her food. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't loud enough to be audible.
No, you're good.
Keep it professional.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah.
Here.
Sounds like we're gonna have a good turnout today.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think we have like over 50 people signed up, so
Oh, wow.
Hey.
it'll be a big group.
No pressure, Jenny. No pressure.
Well, now that you say that, this is fun. It's nice to see people's faces. I hate being in the void.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, everybody on the line. We're just giving everybody a few more minutes here to load in. Nice to see all your faces. Appreciate all the folks on camera. There's Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you again.
Where's the freaking volume?
I think somebody's looking for the volume, it sounds like. There's also a mute button. So if you want to mute yourselves so we don't get any feedback, we would greatly appreciate.
I was just gonna say I was gonna make a note about that later. I think we're all pretty familiar with proper Zoom etiquette at this point.
I know, I swear these days I have like Zoom fatigue. I'll get off at the end of the day and I'm like, I'm so sick of staring at a camera or a picture of myself. I just don't want to see anything. I don't want to see any more screens. Totally zoomed out.
I agree. But it's going to be a great event today, so fear not. Zoom fatigue aside.
Tiffany, were you saying something?
Oh, I was just saying, I definitely think that's a thing. I find it funny when like family members nowadays are like, let's video chat. And I'm like, no. I can't do that all day. I'm good.
I know I've started intentionally setting calls with some of my coworkers where if it's only one or two of us, as just a regular phone call. I'm like, I don't need to see you. I know you're a human. I know you're alive. Like, let's give each other a little break from the camera and just talk to each other like we used to.
Yeah.
In some settings, it's actually kind of just relieving to just have a normal phone conversation versus feeling like you have to be on screen.
Definitely.
Yeah, Michaela and I do. One of my coworkers and I do that a bunch because it's like, it's so nice to just, because usually we're looking at a shared screen anyway. So it's nice to just not do video and kind of enjoy the break. So I'm with Devyn. It's nice to see people's smiling faces. So welcome.
And Haley, we'll let you kick off the meeting. I know we're just a minute after, so we're probably going to wait for some more people to load in here. But we'll let you kick everything off whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'll probably wait till a couple of minutes after, give people a chance to come in.
Great.
At the risk of being interrupted by the doorbell noise every few
Yes.
seconds trying to do intros. We'll kind of gauge it like popcorn. When the popping gets lesser and lesser, we'll feel like most people are probably in.
There you go. Perfect. I like that. I like that analogy. I might have to steal that.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm also really glad to see that some of you are actively eating lunch right now. Even though we don't have a lunch provided for this one, there still is eats in the name. So if this is your lunchtime, please. Just give it a few more minutes. I think we'll get started at maybe 5 after. Just make sure the majority of people are on.
Awesome.
We should have had some sweet intro music, Jenny. We could have been playing some tunes, getting everybody excited, pumped up to talk about housing and design. Next time.
Yeah, put the Rocky music on.
Yeah.
I know we always say that at the design summit, we need walk-up music.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we need intro music next time. You're right, Devyn.
We do.
I feel like that's a really underutilized idea for Zoom. At least that'd be super easy. Just play some music.
Yeah, right.
And then there's not that awkward, like, okay, waiting, right?
And just telling people that we're still waiting.
Yeah, still waiting.
Oh, just when I was about to say that feels like a lull in the chimes, there's another one. All right, well, I think we might as well get started. So thank you for everybody who has hopped on so far. Welcome to YLC Eats and Inspirations virtual edition. Today, we're going to be covering some insider design and economic trends, kind of a recap of this year and looking forward into 2021. And we have two wonderful speakers with us today. We have Devyn Bachman and Jenni Lantz from John Burns Real Estate Consulting. And then special thanks to our sponsors as well. Even though we are virtual, thank you to Ferguson, BAC, KGA Studio Architects, CVL, Whirlpool. These are our overall sponsors. We really rely on them a lot. So big thank you to you guys. These events really would not be possible without you. And then just quick intro about both of our speakers. They are both senior managers. Devyn's going to kick things off. She specializes in market trends. She manages their monthly builder survey and then also has in-depth knowledge of local market conditions, as well as coast-to-coast reports for metro level reports. And then Jenni Lantz manages the design lens. So she's really going to be touching on what that consumer research says for different design trends around the country, and then specifically within Denver as well. So with that, oh, and I'm Haley. I'm the events chair for YLC, in case you don't know who I am. It's nice to meet everybody. And just a quick note about sort of Zoom etiquette and questions. Please make sure to keep your mics muted while the speakers are presenting. And then if you have any questions that you think of mid-presentation, feel free to shoot them in the chat, and then I'll be moderating some questions and answers at the end. And once the chat questions have been answered already, then feel free to chime in and you can answer questions directly with the speakers. So with that, Devyn, I'm gonna pass it off to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Haley, for the lovely introduction. And thank you all for being here today and taking the time to listen to us speak and hear about the market trends, design, housing, the economy. We're going to cover it all today. So again, I'm Devyn Bachman, and you're going to hear from Jenni a little bit later. So who are we? Who is John Burns Real Estate Consulting? In case you haven't heard of us, I like to refer to us as the Swiss Army knife of housing. If you have a question as it relates to housing, we have an answer, whether it comes through our custom consulting work, our Design Lens platform, or through our ongoing research services. I put up a distribution of our client type here just so you can see the different spheres that we touch. I like to say anything that goes into housing is fair game, from the money that invests in it, to the developers that develop it, to the builders that construct the homes, even to the products that are going to go into the homes themselves. So how does our research team look at the market from every angle? We take a top-down approach, and we're going to look at that today. What's happening in the macroeconomic trends, policy changes, and demographics changes that affect our built economy? And also, how do we look at it from the bottom up? This is the space that I live in. So I spend most of my time, as Haley mentioned, in the survey world. I survey home builders, land brokers, single family rental landlords, resale agents, fix and flippers, etc. Really marrying that quantitative element with the qualitative one in order to give us a holistic view of what's going on in the housing market. We also are always looking at new innovations. Single family rental is a big topic today, and it's a new one this cycle, including the build for rent market. And then of course, we can't forget the trends. And this is where Jenni's expertise comes in, managing our consumer and design subscription service, and then a new product that she's going to talk to you about later today. And then I wanted to put this on the slide for you all just to give you a little bit more tangibility. So these are some of the projects that we have worked on in the local Denver market. We've either worked with the builder, the developer, the equity, the rental operators in all of these projects. And we complete about 600 consulting assignments annually every year. So now into the meat of the presentation. I'm going to walk you through a couple elements today. First, we're going to look at how's the national economy doing? Then how is housing at the national level doing? Then we're going to flip the switch and talk about Denver. How's the economy in Denver performing today? And what's the local housing market doing? So that's going to be my cadence before I hand it off to Jenni. And I really like this slide here because I think it exemplifies it really well. We have a hot housing market today, but we really only have a lukewarm economy. As you can see, most of the major economic metrics on here are worse off today than they were 1 year ago. Yet most of the housing metrics are on the positive side of the spectrum. In fact, the best leading economic indicator says we've been doing fine since late August, but we're starting to slow down a little bit. Also, a number of my slides are going to have a lot of data and information, and I'm not going to go into extreme detail on all of them. So you can get a copy of these slides afterwards to dig into the additional detail. Also, businesses are noting a return to pre-COVID levels with increasing sales, but really difficult to find labor. There's definitely a skills mismatch out there. I know personally, I'm trying to hire for a role within John Burns, and I'm seeing people who are either very overqualified or underqualified and not really the skills match that I need. What sectors are doing well in the economy? Well, these are things like sporting hobbies, books, and music. I've seen more people in my neighborhood on bikes than I ever have, so I can attest to say that trend's definitely happening. But on the flip side of the coin, we're still seeing some weakness in clothing and accessory stores and restaurants and bars, as to be expected with the pandemic. Good news, public companies have a lot of cash to put to work, which will benefit our economy in the long run. But permanent job losses are continuing to grow. In the early stages of the pandemic, we saw massive job loss numbers, but a lot of them were deemed temporary job losses, not permanent job losses. We are starting to see that companies are flipping the switch and pulling those furloughed employees onto the permanent job loss. Here are some of the highlights, and unsurprising, a lot of them are in the low wage sectors associated with leisure and hospitality. Despite all of this really negative job loss information, I just told you public companies have a lot of money. Well, so does the consumer. Thank you to government stimulus, we have very much increased our savings at the household level. Now, the K-shaped recovery that seems to be on everybody's minds these days. We saw the massive decline as COVID hit and the economic recession began. And then we saw a return of the blue line, which we call the haves. They're healthy, they're employed in a recovering industry, they're homeowners, and they have retirement savings. But on the flip side of the coin, we continue to see a decline for the have-nots, which are unhealthy. They have high exposure to their job industry, they're unemployed, oftentimes renters, not so much a single family rental, but more talking more dense multifamily renters here, and they have little to no savings. But despite all of this very negative news, what is happening with housing? Well, it is booming. And a big reason for that is the very low mortgage rates. So I pulled from Freddie Mae's website last week, the conforming loan rates, and you will see we are at 2.81 for 30 years, 2.32. And I know we were chatting before we got on today that refis are happening all over the place as people clamor to get these lower rates. Now, more detail on housing. This is the rosiest builder confidence ever dating back to 1985. The best pending home sales index since 2001. The strongest new and existing home sales since 2006. The hottest single family construction activity since 2007. The highest new home market share at 13% since 2008. And the fastest rate of home price appreciation at about 8% since 2014. Those are some very rosy statistics for housing. And the number of people filling out mortgage applications to buy a home continues to surge. Pending resale closings have now hit a 20-year high. And resale supply has gotten even shorter. I see it in the Denver market here. I'm sure you all do too. Homes flying off within days and multiple offers being opted for on most of the properties. Also, in-migration and out-migration is occurring from certain markets here. We complete this analysis by using U-Haul data and measuring how much it would cost for a truck to move into a state versus out of a state. Red dots represent out-migration, green dots represent in-migration. Now you are going to see Denver in red in here, but just barely. And the 3 quarters prior to this, it was an in-migration market. So I'm not ready to call it a trend here, just that we have to pay attention to affordability, which might be causing a little bit of a stick here. But you do see the continued trend of out-migration from those really expensive coastal markets on both sides of the United States to the more affordable Sunbelt markets. And guess what? The outlying areas, they're hot too. We are continuing this trend of urban migration to suburban migration. This is from our residential land broker survey, in which land brokers are telling us they're seeing significantly higher demand right now for suburban located lots. Market conditions. So every single month, a group of us at John Burns, we rate every single new home market. So these are new home market ratings on a scale of very slow to very strong. And you can see here that there was a quick return to normalcy in the markets, with Denver being slow for just 1 month, popping into normal, and then returning to what we consider a strong environment. So you're probably wondering, well, hey, Devyn, what does normal mean? We assume a normal market is one in which builders are selling roughly 2 to 3 homes per community per month, with prices that are rising slightly above inflation. So either adjust up the scale or down the scale to get where you want to be. And strong is a very, very healthy place to be. In fact, when we get into the category of very strong, that's sometimes when I start to worry about a market. I say, is it getting a little overheated on the pricing side? Or are we pushing too much volume out that we're not going to have enough supply coming here from now? All right, and then wow, are those new home sales climbing? This is the data from last month, which shows that sales were up a whopping 67% year over year. And this was the fourth consecutive month rather, that they were up 60%. And our new survey is about to come out, and I can tell you it's still very positive news. Also, best September traffic rating in our history. Like I said, I was looking at October this morning, and it's going to be the highest October on record as far as traffic goes. We did see in sales and in traffic this month a slight step down from September, which honestly is unsurprising. This is typically a slower time of the year. We are seeing that seasonality come to play. The one point being, yes, maybe October's a little slower than September, but it's still up dramatically from a year ago. So yes, we're seeing that normal seasonal trend, but still a massive improvement from 1 year ago. Part of the reason? There's virtually no supply in the resale or the new home market. This is nationally, but I have the Denver numbers for you later. Community counts are down 6% year over year. Well, it's very difficult to grow when you don't have land, you don't have finished lots, and you don't have finished homes to sell. And this is the point here for the finished homes. So this is the finished homes nationally. We're going to, again, look at Denver here in a minute, but look at that. It is just reaching anemic levels for supply. And you can see here, per our survey, builders have less than one finished inventory home per community nationally, down a whopping 43% year over year. So basic economics 101, what is this doing? You have really strong demand, you have lessening supply, which is a perfect recipe for a lot of home price appreciation. And that's what we're seeing play out today. In fact, 84% of builders nationally raised prices, culminating in about 8% year over year national price appreciation. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to transition into the Denver market and the market economic fundamentals for Denver before we look at the new home market. So Denver has lost about 72,000 jobs year over year for a 7% unemployment rate. And while this number is still very, very negative, it's not as bad as some of the other large markets out there that are in the more of the range of a roughly 10 to 14% unemployment rate. And you'll see here, I've included some of our forecast data. So anytime on the next couple slides that you see 2020P, 2021P, that's indicative of our forecast period. So you see us very, very bearish for this year on employment, but we do see some positivity coming into the market over the next 4 years when we're looking at employment. Again, the jobs are mostly centered in the low wage sectors. So when looking at this slide here, the 3 orange bars are going to be what we consider high wage sectors, and the blue bars are going to be our low wage sectors. And what are new homes over resale homes? They're generally always more expensive, and that means you need a higher paying job in order to afford that new home. And so we always think of a good proxy for new home demand being the high wage job growth. And our rule of thumb is we like to see 1/3 of the jobs added in high wage sectors. Now, single family permits. And I've actually just called out the single family number here, but I've layered on top single family and multifamily. The navy blue bars are going to be your single family permits, and the dark brown bars are going to be our multifamily permit number. And you will see that builders have pulled 10,500 single family permits, and that's a trailing 12-month number, which is about a 6% decline year over year. But again, I'm not thinking this is a demand issue. This is absolutely a supply in the right locations issue. And then you can see our forecast for the next 4 years. We are not expecting a ton of growth on the multifamily side. Anybody who lives in Denver knows they've seen the cranes just about everywhere for the last few years. We are expecting it to grow, but not quite at the pace that it's grown over the last recovery. But we are expecting the new home market to continue to grow. Now, I told you community counts were down 6% year over year nationally. They're down 10% year over year in Denver. So these are the supply issues that I'm speaking to. And again, good luck finding a resale home, only 0.9 months of supply on the resale side. I was speaking to a broker the other day, and she mentioned to me that she has a client looking under $350,000, which we all know, being from Denver, that's very hard to find. She said on the Denver MLS at that time period, there were 2 homes that were listed under that price point, and within hitting the MLS, they were gone within hours to all cash buyers. So what's going on in specifically the new home market? New home sales are averaging about 3.6 per community per month. So all these dots you see here are a per community per month rate, which is a 39% year-over-year increase. So you can see the small tick down seasonally from July to August to September. And I can tell you October is probably going to fall about here. But wow, look at the radical comparison to 1 year ago. We really started to see the lift in the market in January, February, and then COVID hits and we have a slower, although not that slow, of March and April. And then look at it pick back up in May. Also, cancellations are extremely low. We consider about 15% cancellations to be the normal range. Today, Denver's sitting at about 7%. So yes, again, there was that small uptick, but we are at very, very low very low cancellation rates. And I think the COVID trend is well evidenced on this slide as you see low cans in January, February, and again, that massive spike in April, and then the downtick since then. And year-over-year price appreciation remains moderate, but here's the but here, 86% of builders raised prices in the month of September. So yes, price appreciation today is at 4%, and the new data again this morning actually said 5%. But with 86% of builders raising prices, that is gonna go up, 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 up. And the inventory remains very low. Builders are telling me they have an average of 0.6, yes, not 6, but 0.6 finished inventory homes per community. That virtually means they can't get spec started. All of the homes that they are constructing today are mainly for already pre-sold homes. They're struggling to add additional inventory to the market. Part of the reason for that is when COVID hit, a lot of the builders got nervous, as was expected, and they discounted and tried to get rid of their spec inventory. So there was more demand in the market than anyone expected, and builders tried to clear some inventory in the first few months, which just culminated in a very massive inventory issue. I want to throw this slide on there because I want to talk about a few different sectors of the market. So I talked earlier how community counts have declined 10% year over year per our proprietary community count data. The black dots you're seeing all over this screen here, those are the actively selling new home projects. We pull this data once a quarter and we pull it from the builder's websites. So it's any project that's available on a builder's website. And then I've overlaid it on top of employment by zip code. So the maroonish sort of zip codes are where our most dense employment centers are going to be. And as you can see here, South Denver has a lot of competition amongst the new home builders. We have seen a plethora of new supply along I-25 here as you move from the Lone Tree, Parker area into Castle Rock, especially at move up price points. So we've seen some more competition from the builders there, which equates to healthy, but maybe moderately slower sales, especially when you're looking in that 700 plus price point. There's quite a bit of supply out there. On the east side of town, it is competitive, but it's not as competitive today as it's going to be. There is a plethora of new master plan projects planned for this section of Denver that are in the affordable price ranges. If all of that supply hits at months, which we all know the challenges to development, so it's not likely that it will, there could be temporary oversupply issues. North Denver, on the other side, we are seeing just very strong momentum out of all the North Denver markets in Arvada, in all the way up into Erie, Lafayette, etc. There is very much a clamoring for available supply on the north side of town. Now, I just painted this picture for you of national economy, housing, local economy, housing, and yes, housing is doing very well today. The final thought that I want to leave you with is just to keep your eyes on affordability as we go through the next 2 years. Demand is very strong, supply is very weak. We are seeing rapid price appreciation, although Denver at 5% is still below our national average, which is about 7 to 8%. But if we continue to push this pricing up and up and up, and I've seen the wage growth data, you probably have too, it does not look good with all those job losses. So we could be looking at some affordability issues come a year to 2 years from now, especially depending on what rates do. But today, the 10-year Treasury bond tells us rates are going to stay low. We just have to see what happens with pricing and wage growth. So that is all I have for you. Thanks for listening to my portion of the presentation. And I am going to go ahead and turn this over to Jenni.
Awesome. Thanks, Devyn. Here, let me request the access to change the slides. Okay, so as Devyn mentioned, I work on kind of the design and consumer research side of our business. And so I'm going to cover consumer trends, some stuff I'm seeing out in the market that applies to the Denver market. And then starting at the beginning of the end, I'm going to cover a couple things that are kind of, hey, what are some interesting things that we could be thinking about? Then I'm going to talk about what's happening in housing and then move to the community level. And then, as I said, wrap up with a little bit of interest, a couple interesting tidbits as well. So to start, build for rent is growing. As Devyn mentioned, it's coming to Denver. It pretty much, I know we first started hearing about it, was really big in Phoenix and it's expanded into different markets and we're starting to see more in Denver. But build for rent isn't just your typical apartment. It can be townhomes like BB Living is doing. What you're looking at here is actually a single family detached project in San Antonio, Texas, that's a gated community that all has 2-car garages, little backyards, and it looks and feels pretty much like a nice entry-level community, but it's all rental, and it includes maintenance. So you're in essence living in that apartment lifestyle, but having the backyard and the garage. Oh, there. And then I highlighted this because I wanted to show you guys, they're not that different than some of the entry-level homes that people are building, say like LGI. They have direct access to car garage, private front and fenced backyards, washer and dryer connections, walk-in closets. Sometimes they have volume. It's definitely a growing market. I know it was interesting during the downturn, earlier this year when COVID hit, is a better way to put that one. Things got slower, and I know our consulting assignments got slower, but it was fascinating to see build for rent never slowed. We did tons of consulting work even in April on build for rent. So it's something to pay attention to, and it's definitely growing in the Denver market. On to housing. So Devyn mentioned the shift to the suburbs. So one of the trends we're seeing is suburban, not urban. But don't worry, guys. I know we're in Denver and we live in an urban market. We're not going to see some huge mass exodus to the suburb. We actually just did a consumer survey, and 61% were saying that COVID had made urban areas less desirable. And think about it with the density, and sometimes you're in smaller places because you assumed you could benefit from the city and go out a lot more. So we were seeing 61%, but that also means a lot of people are planning to stay in the city. And so there's not going to be a huge mass exodus. In fact, we're kind of seeing it's more if the people were already considering leaving, say they were starting a family, wanting to move to the suburbs for better schools, COVID might have pushed them over the edge, but it doesn't mean Denver is going to be empty and have no people living there. So definitely, and suburban. That's a phrase our boss, John Burns, has coined. It's that suburban urban vibe. So think what McWhinney's doing up at Baseline in Broomfield, or downtown Superior, or I'm trying to think of something down south, I guess, Devyn?
Ridgegate.
Thank you. I was going to say, I knew there's a couple projects, but think about it. It's that walkable kind of urban vibe, but you get the benefits of great schools and parks and kind of the benefit of suburban living with kind of that urban walkability. Okay, so some of the housing trends that we've been seeing, actually we saw start before COVID, and COVID just really sped things up. So one of the things that we're seeing is, give me some space. The great room got really big, and really open, and nothing was divided. And now when we're all stuck in the same house for long periods of time, I think people are starting to want a little bit more division. And so I love this project because they brought back the breakfast bar and the pass-through, which I really appreciate. Instead of having the open room, there's a little bit of division while still keeping some things open. You need some space. This is where, when we're all stuck in the same house, we really started to value those lofts and finished basements and bonus rooms. This is actually a finished basement, walkout basement in a Utah project. And so we're starting to see, hey, when multiple people are working from home, or we have kids and they had to do school from home, we started needing, it doesn't necessarily mean a huge house. Sometimes it just means a little bit more separation and alternative gathering areas. So again, I'm not saying great rooms going away, but I think we're going to maybe pull it back in a little bit and start offering more things like, we're already doing it, but lofts and bonus rooms and finished basements, those alternative gathering spaces will gain importance. Give me storage. When we're stockpiling supplies for COVID, where do you put it all? So it was all, I always like to say storage is important no matter the size of the house. So heck, I'd love to have a walk-in pantry like this. I have some storage, but definitely not this cool. But people definitely started to pay attention to, hey, I'm having to have more supplies in the house because I'm not able to go out quite as much. Where can I put them? So start considering, linen cabinets and pantries. And I heard it, I think it was House Beautiful. They called it the larder. And instead of a walk-in pantry, it was like a run of cabinets. I liked the different phrasing. It made it sound somehow cooler than just run of cabinets. So consider storage as you guys are building and designing new homes. And transitions are crucial. Now, do I think we're going to need a sink in every single mudroom indefinitely going forward? No. I think some things are kind of reactionary to what we're going through with COVID. But do I think we've learned to appreciate that transition into the home and having, and especially in Denver, where do you put your snowy boots? Where do you put your hat and gloves and, all of your accoutrement for winter? Or even where do you drop the kids' stuff off after school? So I actually love this one. I went, oh, great to be able to just throw the muddy clothes in the washer. So this one's kind of a combo pack, and it even had a sink and everything. But just even considering those transition spaces, and even providing, a bench and some hooks. Sometimes it's just helping people figure out kind of what they can do with their spaces. And a connection to the outdoors. As our communities and neighborhoods sort of got taken away from us, I know people started really valuing, what outdoor space do I have that's mine? So whether that's, I included a couple different opportunities, whether that's covered decks, this is down in Highlands Ranch, whether that's roof decks, this is up in Superior, this is down in Castle Pines, this is a little covered patio with fireplace. And this is actually down in the Canyons, the new Shea Homes community. And this is a little side yard. So sometimes people want that connection to outdoor space, and it doesn't have to be huge. And I always remind people, it's not just California who has lots of great sun. We have over 300 days of sun. So even something like this, which seems very California-esque, I love because it, heck, if you had the fireplace, wouldn't I love to sit out there in winter, and you can be covered from the snow and enjoy the beautiful surroundings. So I think people have come to value, it's not necessarily just the backyard. That's why I included the range of stuff. It's having that little space of slice of outdoors that they can enjoy. And then work from home. Okay, so we just did a study that we actually just started doing, as Devyn had mentioned. We have a new product we're offering called the New Home Trends Institute, where we're doing kind of the design research that I always did, and then pairing it with some consumer research that we're starting to do. And one of the first reports we did this summer that we launched in September and October was work from home. Okay, so we're all stuck at home. Everybody's saying, oh, work from home, it's going to be huge. Well, so pre-COVID, it started with about 5 million households primarily work from home. I was actually one of those. I've telecommuted for a long time, so has Devyn. Then COVID hit, and 22 million of us are now stuck at home working on our kitchen tables, in our breakfast nooks, on our coffee tables. Well, based on our research, only about 9 million after COVID are going to stay working over 10 hours a week from home. I've been listening to a lot of people, I was actually just talking to one of my friends who works at an architect in Denver, and they're talking about, okay, hey, we've shifted home. Can we really expect people to go entirely back in the office when they can? And so they're talking about a little bit more of a flexible schedule. And I've heard that a lot where, okay, people aren't just going to necessarily swarm back into the offices. They're going to have a little bit more of an opportunity to work maybe 2-3 days a week from home. So what does that mean for housing design? Some opportunities to consider. We had this huge report, so I tried to get a little snapshot for you guys. So we interviewed people and really asked them, hey, what did you like? Or interviewed people who worked from home during COVID and talked to them a lot about what they liked, what they didn't like, what they needed. And as we were talking about before our call started, better lighting. Where are those, where's that natural light and those windows, or where's that great lighting that you guys need for, say, the Zoom calls like we're all on right now? Privacy and noise solutions. As one of my friends can say, she had a desk set up in her master bedroom, and her kids used to come in and ask her questions in the middle of her Zoom meetings. She can definitely say, we need our own private workspace and separation. So sometimes even a door isn't enough when they can come through it. So sometimes it's considering, hey, who's working at home and how can we create multiple spaces for this? Creative storage. Like I mentioned earlier, it's not just storage for your canned goods and your toilet paper. Sometimes it's thinking about things like, oh God, I'm at home and now I have all this paper and supplies and things I need to worry about. So where do we put it? Air treatment. This was another one where now we're at home, we're having to deal with healthy air. I know the fires recently brought that up for a lot of us. Okay, when I'm inside my house, I want the air to be cleaner than when I'm outside my house, and having that balanced temperature. Enhanced connection. Boy, is it important to have good Wi-Fi. People were already thinking about that and building it into new homes. And this is one of those things where advertise the heck out of it that you have an awesome, built-in Wi-Fi network for your new home community. It's one of the things we can benefit as a new home, when we're building and designing new homes. We're new. We're able to integrate stuff that the resale homes aren't. And then more options. So when we all first got stuck at home, I have a home office. I've had a home office for a while, but I know a lot of my friends were like, well, we had one home office, but if you have dual income households and both people are working from home, what's that second opportunity? Because it can't just be the kitchen island if it's more permanent. So food for thought and things you guys can really take advantage of. Some great examples. So one of the things I mentioned was flexibility and storage. This is actually a little transitional space, the cozy and options. This space up on the left is actually a little transitional space between the great room area and the main bedroom. And instead of kind of making it a hallway, they made it a little bit bigger, added some desk space and storage, and all of a sudden you have a really cool semi-private office. This was in a condo project in Playa Vista. And then this project, so I always think about it is, we got used to the fact that the office is that space at the front of the house that can flex as a bedroom. Well, there we're checking the box and we're not really actually solving problems for people. So I love this solution. It's actually on the front door opens on a mid-level and you go downstairs and there's this little office space. And it gives you a chance to, because one of the complaints was, hey, I don't work 9 to 5 anymore. So if my husband or wife is still up, I can't be in I can't be in the great room when they're watching TV. Sometimes the kids are having dinner when I need to finish a project. And so I love this space because it's getting us to think outside the box a little bit and kind of separate the office and put it in different places. And then the Zoom room. So there's been a lot of talk about if we need it. As far as our research said, people don't want it. They don't want to waste the space. They'd rather have a storage closet. They'd rather have that walk-in pantry. But I love this space. It's a little home that's actually out of North Carolina. And it was designed well before COVID hit, but they created something called the hobby room. And it was this little niche over here that had a built-in desk. You're seeing this is sort of that main foyer hallway. There's a little short hallway, and it had a little sliding door. And you had a built-in desk and a window. And I went, what a great solution. It gives you the chance to have, you know, a secondary workspace that's separate from the main living areas, your Zoom room, because there's nice light. And then this background was just a pretty blue wall. So think about how can you create those Zoom room spaces without making a Zoom room? Because people don't really, you know, if square footage is at a premium, they don't want to waste the space on something like a Zoom room. But things to consider are, like I said earlier, natural light, what's behind them, things like that. Our latest survey that we're actually just wrapping up the report for is on healthy living. We tried to consider, hey, what are we thinking a lot about right now as we're doing our consumer surveys? And according to our survey, most of us are taking steps to get healthier. Some of that's physical health. Hey, when you're trapped at home and you can't go outside as much, a lot of us, as Devyn mentioned, bike sales skyrocketed because people wanted to be able to get out and about. But then people are also taking 69% are taking steps to promote my mental health, which is something we don't always think about. So we asked a lot of questions in our survey about energy efficiency and healthy living and what is a healthy home. And one of the questions, as you guys can see, is which of the following is more important? Not so surprisingly, for all life stages, it really is energy efficiency. So I always think about, you know, energy efficiency is easy and tangible to get results. You know, it puts money back in your pocket very quickly. So homeowners value that because it saves them money every month. But as you can see, some people are starting to. I mean, 40% of young families value homes that promote health. So I think people are starting to consider a little bit more about that indoor air quality and low VOC paints and things like that. And this was that question that I was telling you about, what makes a healthy home? Because we kept debating internally, hey, you know, I mean, obviously we know Thrive and they do healthy homes here. As well as, you know, net zero and whatnot. But we really wanted to pick people's brains on what do you consider a healthy home? And not surprisingly, air purification and ease of clean surfaces rose to the top. And humidity control to prevent mold, okay. But then some things like walkable communities rose up to the top 5. And then some of the stuff that we thought was more important kind of fell to the bottom. So it was interesting to see, hey, people define healthy home very differently. And so how can we as our industry respond to that? Well, part of it, I jumped ahead to a different one. Part of it is education. One of our biggest takeaways, and that was kind of we're still finishing the report, so I gave you guys a little snapshot on healthy home. But one of the big takeaways we're seeing is people don't know what HERS scores and LEED certified, and it's a pretty small percentage. So help educate your consumers. Help them see, you know, what makes your home different from other homes. And then now for community, one of the big trends we were seeing that we talked about at our design summit this year at the start of the year in February was sustainability, and I definitely see it continuing. In community, we're not only are we looking at things like solar energy, preserving trees, green roofs. This was actually an old homestead, and they preserved the kind of skeleton of the old homestead and made it into a stargazing amphitheater is what they called it. It's down in Texas. I thought it was a lovely, hey, if you have something on your site, don't just tear it down, consider another use. The other thing that came up, and actually, as I said, trends were kind of starting before COVID, and then COVID sped them up. And so one of the things that we're seeing is access to fresh food and having that farm on site. Now, sometimes it's not about the farm on site, but like I know Central Park or previously Stapleton has a farmer's market every single week. So sometimes it's considering sustainability doesn't just mean reusing things or solar energy. Sometimes it means, hey, where's our access to food and kind of that keeping it local. And then healthy living solutions. I know when COVID first hit, everyone kept asking, like, what's next for community amenities? Well, heck, I know during COVID, people were grateful if they had trails in their community. And the bikes, Eastmark used to give out bikes to all of their new residents. And as Devyn said, we were talking about earlier, People bought bikes in droves during COVID. So having a place to, walk your dog, go on trail hikes. This is a cool thing out in a Florida master plan. It's called Avid Trails. And they had little activated stations. So you can kind of do your CrossFit outside. And this is a little BMX bike track. So kind of considering those healthy living solutions, they're becoming more important than ever for our consumers. And then the clubhouse. No, I don't think the clubhouse is going away, and I don't think it's all going to be outside. But I think a trend we were seeing before COVID that's escalated is definitely more indoor-outdoor connectivity. Provide them the fresh air, the open layouts. As you can see, there's lots of little seating areas around here that isn't just the inside of the clubhouse. And then, like I said, indoor-outdoor spaces. Give them lots of places to gather. So instead of just having that one central gathering point, these two at the top are Rancho Mission Viejo. They had a covered space as well in California, as well as some uncovered space. This is the covered space inside. And then this is a project down in over in North Carolina. And it was actually a huge shaded covered area that had some fireplaces and cool seating and like built-in cornhole. And this is some gathering spaces. So kind of think about how can you really cater to multiple groups? Because obviously COVID isn't going to last forever, but I think people are going to want that connection to the outdoors continuing. And then one of the things we were really forced to consider is, one of the reasons people love master plans is the sense of community. So how do we shop for a home during COVID? And so I think a lot of people kind of had to pivot really quickly. And I think as an industry, we've done a really great job. We've seen home shopping shift. So, virtual visits are possible where you can tour through homes and communities and even buy majority online. Social engagement. I know a lot of the HOAs really shifted so that, hey, they can still connect their people. They can still do Zoom club meetings or, trying to figure out how can you still quarantine cooking classes at daybreak. How can you still socially distance and connect with your people? And then another thing that some people started offering was community service, supporting residents who deliver food or supplies to frontline healthcare workers. So it's kind of bringing people together to support our community as well as support our sense of community. And then, as I mentioned, I was going to end with something kind of fun. This is a project called Pecan Square by Hillwood Communities in Texas, just outside Dallas. And, we're all wondering if, as we're ordering more packages and more off Amazon, we're all kind of concerned about what's next and how are we going to solve for that package solution. Pecan Square created something called the Parcel and Post right next to their community center. And it's really just Amazon lockers. And so it gives people a place to have their packages dropped off. They can pick it up. Actually, I just got a new picture. I should have dropped it in. They have this cool branding that they put over the front of it. So it has a very fun feel, not just the sterile Amazon lockers, but hey, this is one of those, what do we need to think about next as we're designing our community? And then finally, I mentioned the New Home Trends Institute. It's really our next level. We took our research and applied it to design and consumer. So as you saw Devyn's side, we're doing lots of amazing economics research and market research. Now we're starting to dive into trends in consumer. And that's it for me. So Haley, I'll pass it back to you if we have any questions.
All righty, thank you both. One of our questions, which I think might have been answered a little bit with that map, is from Sarah Kaplan asking about, we're talking about Denver area, but obviously that expands beyond just the city and county of Denver. So I guess maybe what counties and what area are you really looking at when we refer to it as the Denver area?
Yeah, so when I say Denver, I'm saying Denver MSA. So we define it as the MSA area of Denver. I don't know the exact county definitions off the top of my head. I can get them back to you. But that map that I showed there at the end of all the zip codes, that encompasses most of the counties that are defined in our Denver MSA.
Devyn, I gave you back control of the mouse. So if you wanted to zip up to that to kind of show them, but I don't know if your call, but just you have mouse control if you want it.
Okay, perfect.
And then that was really the only question we got through the chat. So I will open it up. If anybody has any questions and they want to unmute themselves to just ask directly, you are more than welcome to. Hopefully not all 40 of you at once, but.
And then you guys are welcome to follow up with us afterwards as well. We gave out our phone numbers and emails because we wanted to, you know, if you have a question that comes up later tonight or tomorrow or later this week, feel free to drop us a line.
And this whole presentation has also been recorded. So as soon as that's uploaded, we will be sending out a follow-up email with that for everybody to access. I believe it'll also be on the HBA website, if I'm not mistaken, Connie. But one of the questions that I had is when you're seeing those build to rent developments, how are those rental prices really comparing versus, you know, the new home sales prices, or I guess the rental prices for that area?
Ooh, Devyn, do you have a good answer for that one?
Yeah, and are you guys hearing, I'm getting like an error that my Zoom is freezing. Do you guys, can you hear me still?
Yeah,
Can hear you fine.
I can hear you. And your
Okay.
video is still good.
Okay, sorry, Haley, can you repeat that? My screen tapped out on me and I can't see anything, but as long as you can hear me, can you repeat that question? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just asking for those build to rent communities, how do those rental prices kind of compare versus, you know, the new home sales prices, or I guess the rental prices for that area?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I would say new homes sales are probably, prices are here, resale markets here, single family for rent is probably here, and then your traditional multifamily for rent. So you're probably sitting on a price point that's somewhat similar to maybe a resale home, but is going to be a little bit more expensive. We found that the build for rent premiums range from about 10 to 20% rent premium over a dense multifamily rental. And that's a national number. Of course, it's going to vary greatly by submarket or location, but that's generally the premium that we're seeing for that spread, which is one that's not too far off for what the premium you'd see between a resale and a new home.
Gotcha.
Seeing any trends on garages, you know, versus a 2-car garage versus a 3-car garage, or anything regarding garages?
We haven't delved into it yet. I'd say really depends on the area. I mean, like, I know people in Denver don't necessarily, well, they don't have the garages, but they still have the car. Versus when you said first 2-car versus 3-car, I thought you were going to say 2-car versus 1-car, and I was like, yeah, I don't think we're at the 1-car yet. But I'd say it really depends. I mean, in the exurbs, I think there's an expectation of more storage and more space. Though we don't have consumer research, so I'll have to add that into our one of our consumer surveys. But I'd say the typical assumption is still that 1-car or 2-car garage.
Anyone else? Any questions?
So Brian, I'm totally making a note to ask that in an upcoming survey, because we asked that years and years ago about kind of the preference between 2 and 3-car, but we haven't asked it in a while, so we'll have to dig into that.
Thank you.
Jenni, Devyn, great share, great presentation. Just a quick follow-up on Haley's question concerning build for rent. I'm curious if you can share with us the approximate median square footage of these build for rent models, these single family models, as well as perhaps bedroom count, or just trying to allow us to wrap our heads around how big these build for rent single family communities are compared to the quintessential multifamily apartment building.
Well, I wish my screen was working right now so that I could bring up, we have an interactive data tool here at John Burns, and I have some really great visuals I could show you, but I'm just going to talk to them instead. So use your imagination with me here. The typical layout for a standard build for rent unit is 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Now, of course, we can go up the scale, we can go down the scale, but we tend to find that's the sweet spot. I know you didn't ask about this, but the size of the community also generally tends to be about 100 to 150 homes. The square footage varies very dramatically based on the product type you choose. And the product types are very regionally centered. So in the Southwest portion, part of our online portal is a build for rent dashboard that tracks every project in the country. If you're curious about that, let me know and I'll show it to you at a different time. But in the Southwest, we have the rise of what we call the horizontal apartment. If you've never seen it, Google Next Metro and look at their product. It really looks like an apartment building tipped on its side. Sometimes the units are pulled apart, sometimes they are attached. And those tend to be smaller in square footage. So anywhere from on the very small end, 700 square feet to up to 1,500, 2,000 square feet. Then you move into the Midwest and there's a ton of row homes. There's a very large build for rent operator out there that does a massive amount of row homes. You move into Texas, the Southeast, and Florida, where land costs are not as high as, for example, Denver. And you're going to see a lot of just standard single family for rent, as Jenni showed earlier, communities with dedicated homes. The square footage is going to get a little bit larger for those, but I'd still say the sweet spot's around 1,500 square feet to 1,500 to 2,000 on the large side.
Yeah, Devyn, the one that I showed was all the homes were under 2,000 square feet.
Yeah. So 2,000 tends to be the cap. I'd say 700, 800 is the minimum for some of those horizontal apartments. Great question, Sarah.
Thank you both.
Anybody else? Feel free to just chime on in.
We just did such a bang up job that you now know everything there is to know about the economy and housing. I think that's the sign. Well, I have to say thank you to Haley and to Connie and to Sarah for having us today. And for all of you that we didn't get to meet, it was a pleasure speaking with you. And you see our contact information, screen grab it, reach out to us. We love to hear, I love to hear from you, talk to you about Denver. If there are things you agreed with or disagreed with, all feedback is always appreciated. So thank you again for including us and having us here today.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
And really thank you guys. That was some really great information. And I wouldn't be surprised if you do get a couple emails with some follow-up questions. But yeah, you will all be getting a follow-up email with information on how to access this recording in case you do want to reference any of it later. And with that, I think we're all set to sign off. So thank you again to Jenni and Devyn. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Have a great day, guys.